uniformity in this. I think that it's finally coming to the attention where people realize this isn't a Republican and Democrat argument anymore. It's really a pragmatic argument for the benefit of our kids. And you're looking at one of the leaders since I've been in 2014 that has stood up for reducing unfunded mandates. You'll also see that I've been a leader from a bipartisan standpoint. I'm one of the few members that has ever, on the Republican side, that has ever sponsored WEA legislation to reduce mandates. Their sponsored legislation with my open door policy. They came in and said, Representative Young, we would like to have your leadership in the Republican caucus on trying to steer this forward. And the truth is, I get it. These unfunded mandates put teachers in chairs filling out reports more than they allow them to teach our kids. And that needs to stop. It also forces our administrators to force them into a mandated route towards a four-year career college degree path, rather than giving them CTE options, blue-collar, low-tech options that are vital for our kids to have these career opportunities as they move forward in their lives. So I've been a leader on that, a bipartisan leader, and I'll continue to do that. Thank you.
Yes.
I would like to address our incumbent and his views on unfunded mandates. I disagree that he has always been the best at looking at those, particularly this school safety, shooter issue that we're facing as a nation. I personally support arming security. However, the incumbent proposed legislation that would force that upon everybody. To me, I see that as an unfunded mandate when I, as a school board director, see our budget that is not fully funded for security. I fully believe that we need to leave that in the hands of local control. Our school districts need to determine for themselves what they want to do, and it's up to the state to support that. But as far as unfunded mandates, I see that as another unfunded mandate.
Yes, your response.
It's just so wrong. I mean, here's the House Bill, House Bill 3007. Go read it. There's no mandate in there. Did you even read the bill? As a matter of fact, this bill was co-sponsored with a police officer and a teacher. If you go look at it, just read the bill. The funny thing about being transparent is that you can put it before everybody and they can go see there's no mandate. It creates a bipartisan, with a nod to the Democrat caucus, to give them a little bit more say when it comes to school shootings and providing safety for our kids. And it puts this grand commission together and takes the politics out of it. There's nothing prescriptive at all on schools as a result of my bill. I challenge you, go read the bill. She didn't. You'll find out how unprepared she is for the legislature.
Okay. When we're talking about schools, this question goes to Connie. Where do you stand on supporting school bond levies in education?
This is probably one of my passion projects. Being able to be in the schools and see the lack and see what we can become has made me really reach out and get involved in my community. And in terms of our recent bond, I sign waived, I canvassed, I attended at least 5 lectures from Dr. Manahan explaining in clarity what the goals of this bond was going to do. I support levies. That being said, I feel that all across the state, not just in the 26th district, we're failing bonds. And you know why? One of the reasons is because we have a supermajority requirement. And that means that across the state, the minority is winning. I believe that with a majority in the legislature, with a 2/3 vote, that the voters will be heard. They can reach out to their legislators and let them know how they feel and change this to a 50+1 requirement and start funding our schools. Thank you.
Yes, you're next.
Well, I understand that she wants to lower the result or the bond threshold from 60 to 50, but understand that's a top-down mandate. That's the legislature coming down and changing the local level and forcing a top-down mandate on local municipalities. So there's a contradiction there in what she just said from the previous answer she just gave. Number one. Number two, when you are standing at the state level, it's one thing. I'm glad that she advocated for it. That's what she should do. I think communities should get together and try to advocate and stand up for the schools. But when you're a legislature, the last thing you want to do is come in over the top of other elected officials and try to force them to do something that you weren't elected to do. They were the ones elected to represent the school board. So I have always said, I will be a major supporter of you, and if you'd like me to be in the room with you to help you try to pass a bond, then invite me in. If you want me to be invited in, then I am happy to come help support you, but I will not step over the top of local elected officials. That's a top-down mandate.
Okay, Connie, you let Naomi answer the question and we'll go back to your.
As far as Jesse saying that he never steps over people, I'm going to firmly disagree with that as a school board director and some recent issues that he did step over the Bremerton School District. However, as far as reforming, repeat the question, please.
Where do you stand on supporting school bonds, levies, and education?
Okay, so number one, I do not support changing the supermajority requirement. I'll tell you why. It's because the state legislature will always be held accountable to that for their own capital projects or their capital budget, and I respect that. But we do need to do some major reforming. Currently, there are things the state legislature could do, such as not taxing school building, and their formula needs to be reformed, really. Basically, we're looking at over $500 per square foot for building schools. A lot of that has to do, I believe, with our current Growth Management Act, all that top-down, what it costs. So we need to reform that, and I think that could actually help schools better, but I do support schools.
So I just wanted to rebut your comment that I was talking about supporting a 60% supermajority as an unfunded mandate, when at the end of the day, when we change it to a 50+1, the voters will have their say.
Just a response.
What she's saying, first off, the Democrat caucus has controlled the legislature and the gavel for a number of years, and they will not bring the bill forward. So your own caucus that you want to be a part of disagrees with you, number one. Number two, what you're saying is that you don't want to listen to the property owners that you might tax out of their homes. One of the reasons why we have a 60% threshold is because we realize that we do not want to exacerbate the low-income housing or housing shortage that we have, or homelessness issues by those people that are living on a fixed income that we might tax out of their home. So we give them a little bit more of a priority when it comes to local bond initiatives. And what it does is it forces local municipalities to really go out and engage the community to get that full community buy-in. Now, with regard to what Naomi just said, taking off the taxes on school construction, that is my bill. It literally is the bill that I have sponsored. So thank you for supporting me on that.
Okay, school safety. This is for Con. Get my situation. Should public school employees be armed? What about trained students?
Trained students?
I'm just reading the question.
That's a lot to unpack. So I don't feel that students need to be armed. I believe in safe buildings, and that is the first line of defense against folks that are unauthorized to be on school property. In regards to creating the school safety, I'm a strong supporter of the Second Amendment, but I'll let you know that I was trained on a gun, and I carried a gun in the military, but I also have a 13-year-old child attending school, and let me tell you, I think about what it's like for him to have to do drills, to hide in closets, to hide from an active shooter, and that is not acceptable to me. I don't believe that we should have school personnel being trained on weapons. I think that school personnel should be doing the job that they were hired to do, and that's either instructional or administrative. Thank you.
Yes.
Well, this is a very big issue that we have to face. Not only the kids, I also believe that we shouldn't be arming teachers. I think that teachers should be focused on teaching in classrooms. The House Bill 3007 that we talked about earlier was really really meant to start a discussion that would take the politics out of it by engaging a broad group of industry experts, not only from police and SWAT to mental health people with NAMI, to bring in so we can focus on the full spectrum of things that we want. Coordination in schools, with the active shooter people that understand how long it's going to take to get there, what are the strategies that we would want to implement, implement, bring in the superintendents and the WEA and other advocates that would come in and have their perspective. From the standpoint of really fixing the solution, if you want to put armed personnel, just say putting 3 armed personnel in every school in the state, hundreds of millions of dollars. So we need to look at a broad swath of opportunities and choices here that will fit the local demographics, because an urban school is different than a rural school, and the solution here is going to probably cost a lot of money, but it's a really serious discussion.
Anyone?
This is a great question. I actually really enjoy answering this. I do firmly believe that we should arm security. I think that it is the least expensive, the biggest bang for your buck, if you will, right now when we're looking at school construction costs and everything that it would cost to implement, changing what the outside of a school looks like in order to keep children safe. However, I'll just tell you this, local control is the key here. Unlike my opponent, we already have enough top-down mandates and things going on. I disagree with it wholeheartedly, and we need to leave it up to local districts. I grew up over in the Methow Valley out in the country, and what may be good for them is not necessarily going to be good for Bremerton or Seattle. We need to keep the jurisdictions with the authority that they were given, and that's the bottom line. As far as the necessity for writing particular legislation, I also think it's really important that when legislators write legislation, it's actually meaningful. So creating this bill 3007, I think he said it was, that would create a different group of people to oversee this. It's not necessary. We already have it written in law. Schools could adopt policy to arm their security, not teachers, but security if they wanted to. We don't need any new laws. It's already there.
Okay, this question is for Jesse. We go on to taxes. If any, what new tax would you support, and what should the new funding accomplish?
Taxes, well, I think I'll probably be the only one here that will unequivocally state, maybe Naomi will do too, at least I know she's somewhat conservative on the taxes, but no income tax, no capital gains income tax, and I challenge my Democratic opponent to state that on camera, because she's already been on record once saying that she'll support the capital gains tax, because she doesn't consider it an income tax. Okay, I will not support a governor-sponsored carbon tax. I will not support a vehicle miles travel tax or a road user charge tax that will track where you drive. I will not support those things. The truth is, the argument on taxes, when it comes to the state implementing them, is about growing revenue so that we have the funds that we need to provide the services to people. And we've won that argument as the Republican caucus over the last 5 years because we've kept taxes low. We have allowed the economy to grow and we've increased revenue. That has given the governor and our budget makers billions of extra dollars to provide for the critical infrastructures funding that we need. So why would we reverse course now and lower the revenue to the state when we need that money?
Anyone, same question.
Do I support any new taxes? No, not at this time. I think that we should be utilizing the budget that we already have as far as paper mile, with GPS trackers and stuff. I think it's an absolute violation of our privacy, and I think any kind of tax like that is punitive only against our low and middle income and our small businesses. My father-in-law was a truck driver for many years, and to be able to ship our goods across the state, more taxes on fuel or driving, I think is not something that I would support. I would say there's a possibility of an equalization form of tax on, let's say, electrical vehicles, charging those electrical stations that they charge at. Bicycles with bike lanes, things like that. I think that might be something that we could look into as far as when we're talking about funding for transportation. But any other income tax, things like that, I would definitely not support.
No, I do not support any new taxes. What I do believe is that the Washington State Tax Code is one of the most regressive in the United States, and it affects the bottom percentage of low to middle income earners the most. I believe that we need to restructure our tax code to be more fair and equitable and progressive across the board. What tax did you say? Oh, yes. It was a capital gains tax. Now let me just tell you that what he's referring to is that I distinguish the difference between the capital gains tax and income tax. An income tax, in my mind, is when at the end of the 2-week period or a month period, you have your pay stub, it shows your deductions, that's a tax. Capital gains is not the same. Capital gains is from static earning on stocks and bonds. So they are not the same. Thank you.
So my question is simple. Then if you don't believe that it's the same, will you support a capital gains tax that the Democrat caucus is going to put on you? Or will you state in front of that camera for this district, which is fiscally conservative on taxes, will you state for them in the honor of transparency that you will stand against the Democrat caucus push for a capital gains tax? Because every Democrat challenger I've ever had in this race always says that our taxes are too aggressive. They talk about that all the time to shield acknowledging to the voters so that they can make an honorable and an honest choice that they will stand against or will support a capital gains tax. So will you state in front of the camera that you will not support a capital gains tax and you will stand up to all pressure by the Democrat caucus to do so?
Connie, your response.
I will not respond. Thank you.
And so the questions I had lined up are right in what we're talking about right now. If Art, this is for, let's see, Naomi, who answered last? Connie, did you answer that last?
She answered that one.
Jesse, it's your start. If our tax system is too regressive, what specifically would you do to change it?
So the notion on regressivity of our tax is the basis that they want to, and this is what the Democrat caucus has been pushing. What they want to do is they want to change, or either they say get rid of the sales tax or potentially just lower it down, and instead replace it with an income tax or a capital gains income tax. Now, in one sense, Connie wants to make the point that she does not believe, in her opinion, that it's an income tax, yet the Democratic state platform calls it an income tax. They say it in their own platform, the capital gains income tax. It's their footprint to try to change the structure of the state. Now, if you were to adopt a quote-unquote less regressive, let's think about the regressivity of this. If you were to adopt an income tax in the state, even on passive income that she's referring to, that's only going to favor the rich, because the rich are the ones that come down to Olympia, and the corporate interests are the ones that come down to Olympia and negotiate exclusivity from or exclusions from that very tax. I do not support a change to this tax structure that would fundamentally take rights away from people and support corporations.
Thank you. Naomi?
I think we're talking about the tax structure being regressive. We're really basically talking about it impacting our low and middle income citizens the most. When we look at sales tax, gas tax, all of these things are a tax on our living. You know, it makes it harder and less affordable to live. The only thing I can say that I would do is always be in support of any kind of deregulation of things, whether it's growth management or anything else that is from this top-down state that impacts us. It literally has this rolling effect that creates fees, whether it's permits for your business or for building. I mean, we have so many things. Everything costs money, right? I mean, it's almost impossible to do business. All of those things to me are regressive taxes on people. It's affordable living or not. And we're living not affordably right now. So anything that I could do, I would absolutely support. But to pinpoint something, I mean, there's too many things to say right now.
Thank you. So one of the first things I would address with the tax code is fully funding our education. What that means is when you have your household budget and you have X amount of dollars to work with, and you have an emergency that comes up, then you need to find ways to fund that emergency. The same thing needs to happen, but on a larger scale with our state budget. We're in a crisis mode with our education. Education is not fully funded. There's a lot of programs that are not being funded in our schools, and we need to fully fund our schools, because healthy schools create successful, thriving communities. The next thing I would do is lower the threshold for the B&O tax, so no one that earns under $250,000 will be paying tax on their business. Thank you.
so that we can try to get everybody out of here at a reasonable time. We're already at 8:30. I'm going to ask this one last question. I want you to remember, this question has been in my hand since the beginning. I put these in form. So, I think this is for Naomi. Where do you stand on taxing capital gains or any other form of income tax?
It's the bomb question of the day. I don't like for either one. No, I don't support either one of them. Capital gains to me, people work and invest their money in retirement. To me, even though, no offense, people may think that that is static income. At some point in time, that was money that they earned and they invested, and I respect that. The government doesn't have a right to take a piece of that just because they can't afford to pay whatever bills that they've just racked up. I would never support that, as well as an income tax, because to me, I just see it as an additional tax. It's not, one or the other. They just want to add more taxes on. And again, we're really taxed enough.
Can you repeat the question, please?
Do you support a capital gains tax or any form of income tax?
Like I said before, the difference between an income tax and a capital gains tax are very different. I don't support an income tax, and the capital gains is not a tax on income, in my opinion. Thank you.
So she supports a capital gains tax, which is an income tax by the Democrat platform. I just find it unique. We're in a district where people want to make an honest choice. I think it's incumbent upon every candidate to stand before people and honestly tell them what they feel. If they want to support that type of legislation, then they'll vote for it. But why hide it? When you get down in Olympia, the pressure is immense to try to hide your voting record, to try to dupe the public. And to start your full entry into politics by not even admitting that you want to support a tax because you know it's unpopular in the district, I think is the wrong step forward. Now, in this case, the other thing on the previous question about the regressivity, I felt that both of them dodged the question, but in this case, as Connie was attempting to try to describe her answer, she just delineated for you a corporate carve-out. See, if you move to a less regressive system by going to some type of income tax structure, then you're going to allow corporations and private entities that have the money to go down to Olympia and negotiate carve-outs that hurt the low income. I will always stand against that. I'm an absolute no on any income tax or capital gains tax.
Thanks. Okay, we're going to get into our other philosophy. Oh, we have our last challenge of the day. Go ahead, Connie.
I just want to clarify something on capital gains. At the end of the day, I listen to the voters that put me in office, and so they are the voices that I will listen to when I contemplate that vote. Thank you.
Okay, I appreciate that, I really do. And the voters of this district, by over 70%, are telling its representatives they do not want a capital gains tax. So if you're going to listen to the strong majority of your people, will you fundamentally and transparently commit to right now to stand up against a capital gains tax that over 70% of your district does not want? It's real simple.
Okay, we're going to start with Connie, and we'll start at 3 minutes. We'll start with Connie in our 2 minutes. Please hold your applause until the very end.
Again, I want to thank everyone for coming out today on this early morning. I just want to leave you with this, that what I'm hearing from voters is not really what we're talking about here today. You know what I'm hearing from voters? I'm hearing from voters that they are impacted by property taxes, the lack of infrastructure to get home and to get to work on time and to spend time in the communities they choose to live in. They're also really concerned with the homelessness crisis, particularly the folks over in Port Orchard currently, where we're planning on having a homeless encampment. Those folks are concerned with their safety, and I'm really delighted to learn that the folks at the property are going to be working hand in hand with the neighbors to come up with a solution that works for all. I have 30 plus years of varied service experience. I've served my country, I've served my community, I'm an advocate for my child and will be an advocate for you while I'm in Olympia. I hope to earn your vote on August 7th. Thank you.
Well, thank you for coming. It's been a lively debate for sure. You know, when it comes to transparency and serving you down in Olympia or standing up for corporate interests, I've been leading the way. The legislature tried to pass through and fast track anti-transparency legislation this year, and I was one of 14 members that stood up against it. I stood up against the Republican leadership, I stood up against the Democrat leadership, because I stand for your rights to keep us accountable and hold us transparent. I think that's a record that you would appreciate, because at the end of the day, you have rights to hold us accountable. You have rights to demand that we would listen to you and not try to confuse you with regard to where we stand on issues, especially when it comes to taxes. This is a conservative district when it comes to its tax policy. Now, when it comes to actually going and doing the work for you, my pitch is simple. I believe I offer a unique skill set to you, and I'm willing to lend it to you down in Olympia if you would have me. I'd be honored for you to vote for me and go back down to Olympia. When it comes to jobs of the 21st century, jobs for our kids, when it comes to industries that are relevant today, I have that unique experience in the technology arena, one of the few experts. And on top of that, I'm one of the few people that has been willing to unequivocally state where I stand, give you measurables, so that if I don't meet those measurables, you can come back and then hold me accountable. All in the notion of transparency. I think people are fed up with obfuscation at the political level. I think they're fed up with the corporate influences, and I have a strong track record of allowing you to hold me accountable and standing up to corporate interests. And at the end of the day, I'm going to always roll up my sleeves and work for you, and you can trust that I will do it in a bipartisan fashion, which my track record shows. Thank you.
And Naomi.
I just want to thank you all for coming out. It's so important that everybody be a part of this conversation. As an elected school board director, I can't tell you how much I appreciate people that have come in and given their thoughts and opinions. Our leaders really need our guidance, and we need leaders who are actually there to represent the people. Talk about fed up. I'm actually really fed up with legislators who say they do a lot and talk about doing a lot of things, and then it doesn't actually happen. Legislators can run legislation, but it is those who are effective in speaking to their constituents and actually getting things through, not just pursuing gimmicks. That is what we need in our district. We need somebody who's ethical and effective and fighting for our people. Someone who understands education and is concerned about the same things that we are on a day-to-day basis. We can have a difference of political opinion, but I'm here to tell you I'm here to fight for all of you. Not one-sided. I may be conservative, but I respect everybody's opinion, and that's who I am. I'm ready to go to work for you, and I hope that I can earn your vote. Thank you.
Now your applause. I want to thank our candidates for coming out today. I want to thank everybody in the audience for coming out today. Another great forum. Next week we will be here again, same time. And next week we will have the Senate race for the 35th District. Thank you and have a great day.
Great job, Jim.